there are so many STOL planes out there, right? We have Tundras, we've got Timbers, we've got Cessnas, we've got Super Cubs, we've got it all. They're all a little different, but I got to tell you, this one, the Bison XT from China Hobby Line, is very different. The way the landing gear is set up is different. The details on the wings, the vortex generators, the canopy area, the cockpit area, everything about this plane is very, very different and unique. So if you're looking for a plane that not many people at your field are going to have, and you want something that flies well, it's pretty cool, well, this is one of them. It's a big plane, 1.75 meter wingspan, 6S. It's impressive. Let me get into it, go over all the details, the assembly, the things that I did as far as tweaking it. We're going to fly the heck out of it and show you everything about it. So stick around. Let's take a look at the parts. Start off with the wings. Foam hinges on the ailerons. Ailerons are pretty big. These stickers on there are placed on well. I mean, it's a good looking plane. The paint's good. It's quick connect. Excellent, just huge flaps. The servos, they're metal geared, at least visibly geared, and it says they're digital metal on the ailerons. But on the flaps, I noticed that it wasn't a metal gear. The rudder, pretty good size, and it has mechanical hinge, and you can see it has a little light there. It's going to need to get plugged in during the assembly. The horizontal stabilizer, they just kind of slide together, and you'll have a carbon fiber rod in between those. And pretty standard configuration. One of the most unique parts of this plane is the landing gear, and it has these spring struts. I'll talk a lot more about those because it's critical that those get tweaked a little bit during the install. And then you have a cool squishy tire, which is inflatable, which I highly recommend you inflate it a little bit more. We'll talk more about that later. Functional wing struts, easy to assemble, a quality gem fan 16/8 prop that's already set up. You don't have to bore out anything. You will have some of those little inserts that you need to put in there, the spacers. 3 carbon fiber rods, 2 for the wings, 1 for the horizontal stabilizer, a bag of parts, and all kinds of parts, little plastic pieces, lights, screws, control rods. You got a whole mess of stuff going on here. You have a wooden battery tray, which looks very nice. However, we'll talk more about the functionality of that later. The fuselage, pretty heavy, beefy, a lot of plastic parts for the assembly. They have stickers and some paint. It looks good and they're applied well. All in all, it's a decent run-of-the-mill fuselage like all of these, and you can look at it and just assume how it's all going to get installed and set up. It is unique that there's a lot of plastic in that canopy. It's all plastic, which does make a bit of a noise, I think, when it flies, a little rattly sound. Anyway, wiring, it's got a lot of stuff going on. It's kind of a mess, but not too arduous to clean up and organize a little bit. I'll get into that during the assembly. Got most of my hardware all organized. Let's assemble. Let's start with the landing gear. First thing we need to do for the assembly is put on these basically brackets on the side of the fuselage. Those screw in with self-tapping screws. The main landing gear assembly slides into some plastic tabs in the fuselage, and then you have several machine screws to lock it in place. Next, the spring struts connect to the main landing gear, and then you will also connect them to that fuselage piece, that bracket you put on initially. Main gear assembly finished, except for installing the cool squishy tire, which goes on pretty simply. Just make sure it rolls well. The rudder, pretty quick assembly on that as well. You got the only fiddly part right there is plugging it in so that rear white light works. And then you're going to you need to tuck those wires in, which can be a bit of a pain. After those get sorted out, then you're going to slide the pins, you see the pins there, the hinges, into the vertical stabilizer part of this. And then you have one screw, self-tapping screw, that locks everything in place. The tail wheel assembly, just basically there's 2 self-tapping screws, the larger ones, and that's something that with this kit, some of the documentation on which hardware to use isn't quite accurate, so you got to fiddle around a little bit. But you have 2 self-tapping screws. Those get locked in place. And then springs. You have black springs, and it comes with silver springs. I initially used the black springs because they look good. However, they weren't really very functional, and I had almost no control over that tail wheel. Installed the stiffer, significantly stiffer, and harder to install silver springs, or stainless steel springs, and that worked really well. Horizontal stabilizer, got the carbon fiber rod that slides in 1/2, slide that through the fuselage, slide the other one on. You got to push them together pretty hard in order for those screw holes to line up, which, with a lot of these models can be frustrating. You got to rock it in place like I'm doing here. But they go in place, everything works fine, and the screw holes eventually line up. One more screw to lock the 2 halves together. Not that it's going anywhere, but okay. The functional wing struts need to be assembled, and really it's just one piece that slides into the other, and then you have a small self-tapping screw which locks that in place. Just make sure that you have it assembled where those tabs are basically in the same positions. Screw those onto the wing with some self-tapping screws, and that assembly is complete. Several details for the wings, like this little plastic part and the vortex generators. I will clean all of it. Well, first I'll sand it, and then I will clean it with alcohol and glue them in. You also have some cool nav lights which stick onto the end of the wings. Make sure you put the red one on the left side. I needed to get that ESC in a better place. So by using some creativity and a zip tie, I found a way I can just attach it to the side and get it out of the way so the tray and battery installation doesn't cause an issue, and it has good cooling. I thought I was pretty clever with that until I tried to install the canopy, which I had then had to remove just a small amount of foam in order for the canopy to fit. There's a hatch in the back of the fuselage and a handy place to place your receiver. The 16x8 gem fan prop was balanced out of the box. To install it, you're going to need to put in one of those little spacers. And then, as everything else, you're going to put the spinner backplate on, screw it in place with the washer, and then you'll have screw on the spinner, which is aluminum, and it really looks good. Something about the cowl or the plastic really makes it sound loud. Installing the wings is pretty simple. Let me walk you through it a little bit here. A couple things that are important to note. These carbon fiber rods, when you slide your wing in, they can push back and forth. There's no stop. There's no stop in the wing, meaning you can push them all the way in. Okay, and if you do that and the fuselage, you just have a little stub on the other side, you're going to have a problem. So it's really important that you monitor when you put in these wings that they are that you have a pretty much of an equal amount of carbon fiber on each wing. Hopefully that makes sense. Pretty simple process with this. We're gonna slide this wing on. Come on, get in there. Okay, pull those out a little bit. Make sure your strut isn't dangling. I don't know if you can see that or not, but make sure your strut isn't all the way on the ground, or else once you've screwed in your wing, you won't be able to put this where it needs to go, if that makes sense. So we're going to slide this in, putting a hand here and rocking it back and forth. It is stiff. It is hard to get into this plastic. Then you'll have two screws that go there, and then you have a cotter pin that is going to hold the strut in place underneath. It's pretty simple configuration. Getting those screws in and everything to line up does take some pressure to make sure they line up. Press on the end of the wing, because otherwise you're going to crush a lot of foam. So pretty simple setup. It's just a little fiddly with those screws. do want to talk about the inside here. So here I have a pill bottle with all the piece parts, cotter pins, screws, extra pieces if I need them, things like that. What I wanted to share though is the fact that there is not a lot of room in here. And truthfully, to try to get this tray in and out, you have to press and turn that. And my hands, unfortunately, I can't get in there and do that. It's just too hard for me to push down on that piece and then rotate around to pull the tray out. So basically what I do, I don't even mess with that. I put a different strap on right here, and I just slide my battery back from there under this strap, and I'll put this battery around between the 2 and the 3 mark. These are marked, and I'll put it between the 2 or 3, strap it down. Might put the other strap over that, but I have found the kind of flying I'm doing, I'm generally okay with like this. Now this battery is around, this one is 731 grams. I've also flown with a lighter battery with a 4400 that I have basically pushed all the way forward. And this isn't going anywhere. That's locked in with just that, and I have the shelf liner underneath it. So just kind of give you an idea of what I've done inside the battery compartment.
Let's talk setup. There is no documentation that talks about control throws. So you kind of got to wing it. Here are my spectrum settings that I have. So I'll share you aileron, elevator, rudder, and flaps. Center of gravity was right around the mark that they did recommend of 70 millimeters.
On my maiden flight, this, which is now installed super hard, this came off. It just dropped down, which then in turn drops the entire landing gear. It falls out and the springs fall out. Jesus. The springs fall out, everything's a big mess. So inside, you've got this little spring here. I lost the spring, so I had to buy a new spring. I'll have a link in the description below. But what I also wanted to do is add a little bit more. There was a little play, so I actually added another section of spring. So there was less play because I had a real problem on landings on basically ground handling. That really helped. The other thing I do when I reassemble this is I put a little piece of Blenderm around that to lock that in place so it doesn't come off. The other thing is I pumped up the tires pretty decent amount. You know, they're not squishing down on the bottom. As far as when the plane's at rest, it's not squished out. It's tight enough. That allowed me to have good ground handling as well, or better ground handling.
I'm going to go into this performance flight, meaning I'm going to fly around, do some aerobatics and such. Let me say that the changes I made to this plane at this flight, which was more air in the tires, stiffer springs, stiffer tail wheel springs, and it allowed me to do that and track pretty well down the runway. Prior to that, it was almost uncontrollable when it was rolling fast. So let's see, I've got a 5,000 milliamp battery. This thing will fly a long time, you know, but power-wise, capabilities-wise, I'm going to go into the performance. Then I'm going to go into a bunch of landings, primarily three-point landings. Some of them will be three-point and then touch and goes kind of thing. But to give you a perspective, this plane is a challenge to land on a pavement, especially if you're trying to land on the mains. Landing on doing a three-point, not so hard. You might have seen in some other videos showing off this plane, it will hover. I did some hovering with it up high, didn't have the control surfaces where it needs to be to do any serious hovering, but man, the thing is unlimited power. It's fantastic.
Landing flaps.
Do a little slow flight.
Later on, I show some stall tests, but that gave me the confidence to fly very slow. It with full flap, the vortex generators, everything it has, man, it'll fly super slow. You can do some cross control, which I also show in the end, at how well this plane handles that without failing, falling out of the sky and such. Really impressed with the slow flight capabilities.
Plenty of power.
As you can see, performance-wise, from a power and aerobatic perspective, really good. In fact, there's a lot of control with the ailerons the way I have them here set, and they're not at full 100% either. So very happy with just overall performance.
Time remaining 4 minutes.
Great power, but
Flaps up. Time remaining 3 minutes.
plenty of aileron. Plenty of aileron throw, pretty responsive. Pretty neutral setup. Kind of maybe a little bit forward. But all in all, man, it flies good. It just has that vibration. I just can't figure. I think it's the cowl or all the plastic and the that it deals with.
Landing flaps. Takeoff flaps.
Starts getting a little unstable at speed with with that landing gear setup. That's the thing. I mean, you can't come in hot. It's going to be really hard to control, at least for me. Haven't figured out the
Time
code.
remaining 2 minutes. Landing flaps.
Let's try to get a 3-pointer out of her. Backing off throttle, feeding in some elevator, some power.
Flaps up. Landing flaps.
Let's bring her on in here. Nice and easy. Do another 3-pointer. Cutting back on throttle. Getting that nose up a little bit. Got, too much speed. Let's do it again. Full flap and about half throttle, just because it's pretty draggy.
1 minute.
Let that nose up.
Flaps up.
So landing on a runway, it's possible with stiffer landing gear. And a little more air in the tires. Not too much, they're still pretty squishy.
knife edges
Seconds.
with a lot of
Takeoff flaps.
elevator.
Landing flaps.
Feeding elevator, elevator, elevator. To get that down, man, it does a 3-point pretty darn nice. I'm happy with
Flaps
that.
up.
Much happier with the way this thing flies. Do some stalls.
Takeoff flaps.
And
Flaps
do a
out.
clean stall first. Try to get it to get a little bit more elevator. Okay. Full elevator. She just doesn't want to drop a wing. Let me do some cross control stuff.
Off the runway.
Okay, thank you much. Let me do a lot of rudder, cross control stuff, flat turns. That's pretty cool. Let me try to get a
If you're looking for that
Try to get a
different
three-pointer
plane,
out of her.
flies exceptionally well. There's some challenges on landings, of course, but it is a solid flying plane. The landings take practice, but you can get there. Heck, if I can do it, anybody can do it. If you're interested in this plane, there's a link in the description below, along with other links. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.